right, we're
live.
We're now live.
3, 2, 1.
There's no cut. It starts now. All right, so this morning we're going to start the 52 Weeks to Success program. It's going to be a little bit of a different twist than we've done in the past, but we're going to do every week. We're going to have a different activity. There is a blog that goes with this, 52 Weeks to Success in Real Estate, blogger.com, I think. And we'll get you that via email or put it out there. And it will have written backup for the things that we're doing today. So, what is the first thing that we have to do to be successful?
Prospect.
It's a good answer. What's the next thing we have to do?
Prospect.
How many prospects do you have to get, though? Do you know? How do you know how many?
Based upon what you want to earn.
Okay, and so how do you figure out how that all rolls together? First document you have to work on is
business plan.
Business plan, right? So we're going to work on a business plan today. I think one of the most common mistakes that agents make is either fail to plan or you make a plan, you write your business plan because somebody gives you a form to fill out, and then you never look at it again, right? How many people have ever done that, right? That's helpful. It's real beneficial. At least it gets you somewhere, right? So let's talk about the driving factor for a successful business plan. The number one factor in a successful business plan is that it has to be written. Why does it have to be written? Right, exactly. I mean, the whole do it once and then, be able to never look at it again. If you don't write it down, you can't even do that, right?
Well, if you don't write it down, it never happened.
It never happened. I think that's a great phrase. Because if you don't write it down, technically, really, you can't prove that it ever happened. Right? The act of writing it down itself, from a psychological standpoint, does something in your brain that not writing it down doesn't do. Just thinking about it doesn't accomplish. Okay? So it's very important for you to do that. What's the number two? Number two is flexible. Why flexible?
Well, there are external variables that would impact on what happens to your plan. You break a leg, that's external.
That's definitely, well, our internal plan.
And market fluctuations.
Right. I mean, there's all kinds of things that are unfortunately outside of your control. I mean, some of us, if we had our way, we would be able to write our plan, and that would be the way the world functioned for the next 52 weeks, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's just not going to be that way. There's going to be things that happen. There's going to be cold weather storms that knock schools out, that change our schedule. There's going to be all kinds of things that keep us from being able to be exactly to the plan, right? So we have to be able to adapt. Now, here's the other part, especially if you're newer to the business. If you're new to the business, as you get into the business, for those of you that aren't new to the business, as you get through even that first year, how does your vision of real estate change? Is it significant? Like your understanding of what has to happen and how it works and what your strengths are and what your weaknesses are and all of that develops pretty significantly over the course of the first year, right?
Yeah. No substitute for experience.
And so you have to make sure that your plan keeps up with that experience development, okay? Number three, I love the fact that the first thing that you guys said when I said what's the most important thing you do is prospect, because that is an activity. Your plan has to be activity driven. it has to be specific in these are the things that we're going to do to accomplish these things, these goals. Because if we just speak generally, and really prospect is general, right? If we just say, generally speaking, we're going to prospect. Okay, great. What does that mean? You know, you've got to be more specific than that in the plan. And we'll get to those details. Speaking of goals, if you don't have a plan that's goals-oriented, you're not going to be able to really know where you're going, right? That's the end game, the end of the map, the end of the road. Your one-year business plan for this year, is your goal in that one-year business plan what you're going to accomplish this year? Or could it be bigger than that?
You can have a long-term goal too.
You should have long-term goals too, right? Because what happens if you set a short-term goal of, say, have 10 closings, and your long-term goal is, I'm going to be able to do 50 closings a year. And 6 months from now, you've already done 10 closings. If you didn't have that long-term goal, would you just pack up and go home?
No, they already made it for the year.
There are people that would. Done, going on vacation, right? I mean, and some people, that's part of your plan. I know agents that they take the summer off, or they take the fall off, because that's part of their plan. That's what they want to do. And that's the beautiful thing about real estate is the plan is your plan. It's not my plan. It's not some company's plan, or brokerage plan, or guru's plan. It's your plan of what you want to do and when you want to do it. So the last one is the word alive. Now, how is that different than flexible? Because you might think, oh, well, that just means that it's a living document and it changes, right? Different. What does alive mean?
That it has its own force, that it's able to be projected not independently of you, but that you, with the plan, are projecting something else.
Definitely. It's got to be a part of everything that you do. It's got to be in there. I love that they're doing construction upstairs. The simple question of, does this activity fit within my business plan to help me reach my goal, is the question. Or if you want to use one of those little, you want to make a bracelet, the WWMBPD. I know it's too many letters. What would my business plan do? Because it always helps to have one of those catchy phrases you can wear on the wrist, keep you focused, right? And a little snap in. Hey, it's all right. All about marketing, right? I mean, the key is that it has to be alive. It has to be a part of your daily activity in order for you to be fully successful with it. The concept, or the old concept of, let's write a business plan, turn it into my manager, and go on my merry way and never think about it again, is flawed. It's got to be a part of your daily routine. Everything that you do has to be answering the question, is this fit within my plan?
Is there also a place up there where you can put your why, like why? Why do I want to do this, or why?
I think that fits within the details of those things, because these are very broad at this point. We're going to talk a little bit more into the specifics of actually doing a plan, because I do think that's important. You got to know what's motivating so that you can reach back to that. Because sometimes on a dark, cold day, you might think to yourself, why am I doing this? And you got to have an answer for that, because you got to be able to motivate yourself through those points.
I wanted to go back to that point about being flexible. I don't think it's just merely external factors that might make us need to be flexible, but also, as we plan, we may make mistakes in how we plan, and we need to be like self-correcting and be able to get up and move forward and correct.
Absolutely.
So I don't think it's just about the external factors. Like
Because think about it, you know, if you start your career off and you get going and your plan is to do 12 transactions, so one a month, and 3 months into it you haven't done any, is your plan still to try and accomplish 12 transactions in that first year? Well, it could be. But what if you get another 3 months and now you've done 1 or 2, but you know you got 11 more to go in 6 months, and you start to realize, okay, at my pace, at what I'm doing, this is not realistic for me. I need to look at this more realistically. Because you do have to have the ability to adjust to what's happening in your world. And we always like to talk about the super well. If I plan for 12 and I accomplish 12 in the first 3 months, woohoo, now I can change it to 48 or whatever. That's great, and that does happen, but guess what? The other happens too. And so you have to be prepared to be able to adjust up or down in your process and what you're doing. Because worst thing that can happen to you is you have a goal of accomplishing 12 transactions and you're 10 months into it and you've only done 2, and how focused are you on trying to accomplish that goal? How real do you believe? How much do you believe that you can do another 10 transactions in the next 2 months if you've only done 2 in the first 10? It's not going to happen, right? And that's not a helpful plan at that point. That's just something that's just so far beyond your capability that you just can't do it. Now, we can make adjustments to the plan, and maybe something we were doing in the plan wasn't working right. And, we can go back and look at those things, which is why it has to be alive and be part of your daily process, so that you're making those adjustments subtly as you go. Hopefully you don't make it to month 10 and realize I've got 10 more transactions to do. That would be a long plan, right? All right, so let's get started on the actual process of developing your plan. The first question I want you to ask is, what is your vision statement? For your business. Now, an interesting side process is you can also ask this question, what is your vision statement for your personal life? Because these things have to run concurrently. One affects the other, right? You have a bad relationship or challenges with family, or we could go on and on, right, with examples, things that can impact your business life, especially in real estate where you're an independent contractor. So your personal life impacts your business life pretty significantly because your pay doesn't get docked, or at least you don't necessarily think it does, when you don't show up the next morning. Technically it does because you didn't do the work, and so therefore somewhere down the road that cost you money. But it's not quite that one-to-one if my paycheck got docked for 8 hours because I didn't show up or whatever. That statement to me is really one of the most powerful things that you have to focus on. And I want you to think about business planning differently than we thought about it before. In the past, we talked about business planning as, okay, what are your numbers? What do you like to do? What activities do you have? There's a whole list, right? And you can go online, or you found, or there's 1,000 different versions of the analytical business plan. This, to me, is more important than those things. And until you answer this question, it's not as easy. So I want you to do, we're going to do a little exercise. Okay? You ready? Now, everybody, this is a safe environment. Close your eyes. Right, close your eyes. Imagine yourself 5 years from now. Try to build a mental picture of what you would look like 5 years from now.
Oh my God.
Be nice to yourself. Think about your business. Imagine yourself in the office. How have you built your business? Who are your clientele? What type of properties do you work with? What kind of achievements have you accomplished? What enjoyments in your life do you have because of your success? What things do you have? What places have you visited? You continue to ask yourself all of those questions. Now, as you open your eyes, quickly write down everything you can think of, you remember. All of those details. The more detailed you can be, the better off you'll be. Don't try to organize what you're writing down. Just stream out, and my voice is going to inherently inhibit you. So you probably have to do it again in a quiet room. But you just want to stream of consciousness, write down as much detail about what you can remember that you envisioned as possible. After you've finished writing this mess of words, descriptions, you can come back and you can start to sort through it and convert it into somewhat of an organized vision statement at that point. Okay? But you don't have to do that as you think about it, as you write it down, because you want it to be just stream of consciousness. Because when you agree that that should be, if you let yourself do the exercise freely, that is your vision. That should be what your plan is going towards. So when we talk about goals as a part of our business plan, there are numeric goals like dollars earned or generated or closings and all those sorts of things that you can quantify. But more importantly, we need to have a vision of where we're trying to get. We've got to have an understanding of where are we trying to be a year, 5 years, 10 years, whatever. And once you have a really good vision of where you're trying to go, now we can go back and do kind of a more traditional business plan piece. Okay? And so we have the typical traditional business plan questions, and I have a whole list of them here. And this is similar to what I've emailed out in the Word document that we have that just has all the questions. Now, the first question in that is this one, the vision, right? And then the rest of them are what are your closed unit income goals for the year, or your top 5 other business goals for the year, personal goals for the year, activities that worked for you in the past to generate business. Which of these will you continue? Which will you not? New activities do you want to try this year to generate business? How many days a week do you work? How many weeks do you want to work a year? Average sales price, commission collected, all of those details, right? Now, the trick is that even in the last thing that I sent out, there were 2 versions of this. There's one that's kind of this mid-level detail, and it goes into a fair amount of detail, but it doesn't dig too deep. And then the other one that I sent out was, like 16 pages long or something, and it dug way deep into the detail. How do you pick which one you want to do? How do you decide which one works for you? I mean, is one better than the other?
Depends on your readiness.
Readiness is a good point. Personality, your focus.
It might be to do the overall broad one first, and then to afterwards delve into the more detailed one.
For some people,
that's another step. That'd be a step-oriented thing.
Yeah, could be. Could be. I think the key is to get into enough detail that you're trackable and manageable and useful. But here's the limit. If it's too detailed, so detailed that you're not going to finish it because you're going to get annoyed or distracted or whatever, then it's too much detail, right? It's like if each topic has 12 bullet points that you got to get down into, and you can only manage to get through 8 or 10 of them, then that's your limit. So you've got to get to a limit point where you're going to finish what you're working on, but work on getting it all done too, because you don't want to stop 3/4 of the way through because you're just burned. You know, sometimes when we do exercises like this, we get drained, right? Now the fun part is this is not a one-time process, right? The first step is we got to sit down and actually put it to paper the first time. But we should be repeating this process on a regular basis and going back to our plan and making sure, is our vision still the same? Are these details of our vision